to see who is with us, Mr. Rincon can just start. Okay. Mr. Rincon is the applicant specialist from Student and Information System Project Department with OCPS. He will be sharing with us, important information about how you can access to Skyward. Okay. I hope this information is very helpful for you and you can start a great school year. Mr. Rincon, you can give all the important information about Skyward.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your introduction. Once again, my name is Andres Rincon. I'm with the Student Information Team, and I'll be discussing with you tonight the topic of Skyward Family Access. So where you're going to be able to go and view student information, not just related to grades and assignment scores that make up those grades, but other things such as discipline, attendance, health information. If your student is ESE and has special needs, where you can view that information as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Moving over our first slide here, main thing is that for all parents or guardians, any information that you want to access related to Skyward can be found on the main OCPS website at ocps.net. And then once you're on that main website, you want to click on the Current Families tab, which is the left-hand portion of the slide currently being displayed for you. And then once you select on Current Families, you'll scroll down towards the bottom of that list and you'll click on Skyward Information. On this particular page of the OCPS website, we have any communications that the district sends out related to Skyward, whether it be new information is available, if there happens to be any downtime, either because of scheduled maintenance or that there's an issue, that communication will be listed here as well. And then under the documentation tab, those have all of like your user reference guides. How do I create my Launchpad or my OCPS parent portal account? If I've already done that and I'm having information or trouble accessing my student or my student's information, what are the processes that I'm going to need to go through to try to get that access resolved? Okay, so that's everything on this particular slide. We also have some videos for you as well that will walk you step by step through creating your Launchpad or your parent portal account. Now, throughout training, you're going to hear me say those two terms quite often. I'm going to be saying Launchpad or the OCPS parent portal. They're synonymous with one another. They mean the same thing. And I'll do my best to stay consistent and in referring to it as the portal, the OCPS parent portal, because what it essentially does is it acts as a gateway to you and it allows you to use one set of credentials to log in and then access a whole host of other sites, Skyward being among them. So how is it that you create this Launchpad or this OCPS parent portal account? So what's really important is everything is driven by the contact information that you have in Skyward. So when you're creating those registration packets that you're going to submit to your schools during the registration process, and you're putting down phone numbers, email addresses, that information is critical. Because the most important thing to remember, and I'll mention this several times throughout training, is that if each parent or guardian wants their own unique access account to the portal, then you have to have a unique cell phone number or email address. When you are creating your parent portal account, you're not going to be able to use a landline or internet or VoIP phone number to create and log in with. It must either be a cell phone, which can, receive a confirmation to validate you are who you say you are, or an email address because there's some authentication that needs to take place. And it's going to operate much like any other of our social media websites that we have. We use the example of Facebook here on the slide, but you would create an account either using a cell phone number or an email address that is unique to you, just you, and that information is consistent across however many students you have enrolled in the district. So if you have 3 students in OCPS, that cell phone number that you would like to use or that email address that you would like to use needs to be consistent across all 3 of those students. So you may have a student who's a little bit older, they registered and they're, let's say, in high school now, and then you're bringing a new student in to our district. Maybe they're, registering as a brand new 5th grader. We want to make sure that the information for our oldest student is consistent with the information for the youngest student that we're registering at this time in terms of email and phone number. The reason that Launchpad or Portal is a really big benefit, especially to you as parents or guardian, is that it's a one-stop shop. Once you create this one account and log in to the portal, once you log in, you're essentially going to see a screen that's laid out and has a bunch of tiles on it. Those are going to give you access to multiple different systems for parents or guardians that the district offers. Skyward is going to be a unique tile in there. And that once you log into the portal, you don't have to put in any other credentials for any of these other applications that you're trying to access. It's the one time you log in, and then you can go to any of the other systems. That's going to operate as our single sign-on. You can also see down there that last bullet point. OCPS Parent Portal is sort of the naming convention that I'm going to use throughout our training today because I think it better encapsulates exactly what this system does for you. It's just a portal or a gateway to all the things that you're going to have access to as a parent. So how do we get into this particular system? So when you log into that parent portal, you are automatically given access to all of the other systems that OCPS or all the other applications that OCPS has available to parents or guardians. You can access it on a phone or on a computer through a traditional web browser. I will say that Chrome is going to be a little bit more stable in terms of the browser if you choose to go that route, but all of them should work. And then that third bullet point outlines all of the processes that sort of go along into this. So the first thing is your school enters that data that you provided during the registration process. So whatever phone number you listed as your primary phone number, your secondary phone number, all the way up to a third phone number or a work phone number, along with your email address. If you choose to use a phone number to create your Launchpad account with, that's totally fine. You just have to remember that phone number must be a cell phone number and it must be unique to you. Same thing with an email. We're seeing more and more these days families use family email addresses, which is fine, but that just comes with the understanding for this parent portal account creation process that if you have an overall family email address, only one of the guardians or one of the parents would be able to use that to create their Launchpad or parent portal account. The other parent or guardian would need to use a unique email or a unique cell phone number. After the school enters that information for your student or students, about 1 to 2 days later, you can go ahead and set up that account. You would go to Launchpad. Once that account is created and you're logged in to Launchpad or that OCPS parent portal, you're going to automatically be able to log into any other system the district has provided you access to. That fourth bullet point goes to what I was speaking to about earlier, that you must use a cell phone number or email address you get to pick when you're registering, but it must be unique to you. And because we are essentially creating this portal for you that gives you access to all of these other applications, you're never going to need to worry about updating a username or password for Skyward or any of the other applications. All you have to worry about is your login information for the portal, because that controls your access to everything else, Skyward included. Once you've sorted your access out, then additional contacts like an emergency contact or an emergency guardian, all of that information that had been provided during the registration process, if you would like for those additional contacts to have access, they would be able to at that time. So here is the link to Launchpad, aka the OCPS parent portal. Now I do want to point out that there's a couple of things here. In that main screenshot right there in the center, it references the Launchpad, which we also know is called the OCPS parent portal. But there's a distinction that needs to be made, because if you're looking at that URL above there, we see this thing called ClassLink. The distinction between that is ClassLink is the vendor or the company that provides us this service. And then we as the district provide that service to you, and we brand it the Launchpad or we brand it the OCPS parent portal. So if you're wondering, well, why in the world don't I go to, just OCPS Launchpad, .com? It's because we must connect with the vendor, which is ClassLink, who's providing us this service, and then you will be given access to the portal. Even though it's sort of small there in the bottom portion of the screen, this is also really important to understand. Most of the time when parents are logging in, they want to know about grades. They want to know what's coming up, what assignments are due, what's my student's attendance like, how are they progressing towards their graduation requirements, especially if you happen to be the parent of a senior or a couple of seniors, you want to know how their graduation requirements are going. You as a parent or guardian will not ever go directly to skyward.ocps.net. That is only reserved for staff members of our district and students. Should you ever need to gain access to Skyward information, as I mentioned just a moment ago, you are always going to be going here to this parents.classlink.com, which is going to provide you access to the parent portal. Okay? And then once you put in your username or password, which you would essentially get to pick during that registration process, whether you're choosing to register with a cell phone or an email address, once you log in, that's sort of what you're going to see on the right-hand side. It'll read OCPS Launchpad, and there will be a host of tiles that represent all of the applications that you have access to as a parent or guardian of a student in Orange County. Should you ever need to reset your password to gain access back to these systems, all of that will be done through the parent portal, aka Launchpad. Earlier in the presentation, I had mentioned that on our main website, ocps.net, under the current family tabs and Skyward information, any announcements related to Skyward will be posted there. And I had mentioned briefly that an outage or downtime might be one of those things that we communicate as a district to you. So this first bullet point here just lets you know that the second Saturday of each month is scheduled system maintenance. So if you are trying to log in during that time, just be aware that there may be intermittent outages while these updates are being made. And it's the vendor that's doing it. And we mentioned the vendor a moment ago, which is ClassLink, which is providing OCPS the access to this parent portal. And they're going to be installing those updates and performing the maintenance on the system. The fourth bullet point there also indicates, the primary time in which a significant amount of maintenance is done for Skyward. About a week during the summer, we have a process that's called year-end processing. It takes place right after summer school, and this is the biggest amount of time that you're ever not going to have access to the parent portal and through the parent portal access to Skyward. Because during this YEP, which is what we refer to it here in the district, during this year-end processing time, that's when we're closing out that current school year and starting up the new school year. So we need a significant amount of time to make all those changes. But once again, we're going to be posting messages well ahead of that, letting all of our parents and guardians know across the district to expect this yearly outage. So moving forward in our presentation, we're essentially going to pretend at this point in time that we've logged in to the parent portal, that we've created our account either with a cell phone that's unique to us or an email address that's unique to us, and that we've logged in and we've clicked on that Skyward tile. And the screenshots for the bulk of the presentation remaining are going to essentially show you what it would be like navigating the Skyward Family Access. Anything that's displayed on my screen in blue text will be an operative hyperlink within the system that's going to provide you with additional information. So if you go into the gradebook, say for example, and an assignment name is highlighted in blue or is in blue text, you'll be able to click on that and get some additional details. So here we have the home page for Skyward Family Access, and this is going to be the layout that's in general for everyone. The biggest things that are going to be unique to you is in the upper left-hand corner, however many students that you have enrolled in OCPS, they're going to be included in that drop-down in the upper left-hand corner. And this is usually the first area where parents realize they may have an issue. Now, I'm going to mention it from this point going forward, essentially through the rest of training, that should you ever encounter an issue getting access to Skyward through that parent portal, your first course of action is always going to be able to reach out to the school first. They're going to need to be able to verify your email address, your phone number on any of the student accounts that are available to them at their school, and they're going to do some troubleshooting on their end. If you are still experiencing issues logging in, maybe you have 3 students in our district, but when you come to this area and click on that drop down, you only see 2 out of your 3 students. You've contacted that school, you've worked with them, but they're still having some issues sorting it out. That's when it gets escalated to the district, and we'll take a look at it. I'll sort of reiterate that as we go through training, and we'll be closing with that information as well for our presentation today. But in the perfect world, you would see all of the students who are enrolled in the district from that drop-down menu in the upper left-hand corner. Your name would be listed in the upper right-hand corner for parent or guardian name. The center portion of the screen is essentially reserved for critical announcements that the district wants to post. For most of you, if you've logged in and been successful logging in at this point in time, that main portion of the screen has been filled out with some of those custom forms that the district would like you to complete. On the left-hand side, you're going to see all of the tabs as it relates to your students, whether it be online forms, the grade book, attendance, discipline, test scores. Those tabs will be there as it pertains to your student. So if you have one student who's receiving special education services, but the other two students are not, that one student may have an additional tab that doesn't display for the other two. So that's also something to consider. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll sort of see a standalone column there for your calendar with any upcoming events that are available. So sort of going down that left-hand column, first place we come to is our online forms. These are forms that the district needs you to complete. Device forms, we have the parent consent forms in there. As we move more towards giving you the ability to fill out these forms online, more forms will populate in this area. I believe one of the newer forms for this year was the transportation form, essentially declaring whether or not your student will need transportation to and from school. Then we have our calendar. This is going to show all the classes related to your students. You can update the calendar display to show one student at a time or multiple students. Any district events that are going to be important, you're going to see holidays and teacher work days that are on here. You're also going to be seeing homework assignments so long as the teacher has added them in Skyward. Once a teacher adds an assignment to Skyward, it's automatically posted to Skyward Family Access for you. You can also see here in the screenshot that there's blue text sort of in this call out area. And you see where it says right below a grade, a sample grade of 85, it says show assignment details. That goes back to one of our earlier slides that just lets you know anything in blue text you can click on for additional details. So our secondary grade book, this is essentially what our teachers use as the scoring or the academic grade book for grades 3 through 12. So this is where all of those assignment scores are going to go, our test scores, quizzes, anything that adds to your student's grade to create your student's final grade is going to go in this secondary grade book. You're going to see multiple columns, and throughout the year, what's highlighted in yellow is going to update based on the time of year that it is. This screenshot that we're displaying now just so happens to work for this time of year because it's related to our first report card or our first term. You're also going to see some columns in there that may or may not apply to your student depending on what grade level they're in. We see a CP1 and a CR1 column sort of in between our PR1 and our RC1 column. So CP and CR, that stands for your conduct progress or your conduct report card. And that's not going to apply to any student grades 6 through 12. That's reserved for our elementary students, and I'll be getting to that here in a moment. PR and RC will apply to all students across the district. That's going to be for progress report and report card. And whatever's highlighted in yellow is essentially that time of the year or what progress report or report card is being focused on at that time. In this gradebook area, up across the top portion of the screen, you're also going to see any missing assignments your student may have. And if you take a look at the second bullet point there on the left-hand side of the screen, missing assignments have to be marked by the teacher for them to appear in this particular area. But if you have any missing assignments for your students there, once again, we see blue text available to us. You'd be able to click on that particular assignment to get assignment details, to see exactly when it was due, and maybe how much time your student has left to turn it in. So that secondary gradebook, which we just went over, that was specific from grades 3 through 12. The standards gradebook is specific to kindergarten through second grade. This is where we keep those conduct progress reports and conduct report card grades. They are unique to our early grade levels in elementary, and they're going to track things like that social and personal development. You still have the same functionality, even though the layout looks slightly different for this standard gradebook for our kindergarten through second grade students. But you're still going to have access to click on assignments. And while we're not using primarily numeric scores, we have those alpha character scores of your S's, your U's, your N's. You would be able to click on those if they're highlighted in blue for additional information as it pertains to those conduct progress and conduct report card grades. But you'll also notice we have that same functionality that appeared on our previous slide. Your current term is always going to be highlighted or called out in yellow. Staying within that gradebook tab, if you drill down deeper into a specific term, in this case, our example is looking at the progress report for our first term. By clicking on your in progress averages for your students, it's going to give you not only a graphical representation there in the upper right-hand corner, but a breakdown in the bottom portion of the screen, sort of assignment by assignment, and how your student's grade was calculated to reach that. Obviously, this is a perfect scenario. This particular student scored 100 on every particular assignment, which could very well be the case. But if there was anything less than 100% for any of your students' assignment, that would be visible in the breakdown, not only in the chart or graph in the upper right-hand portion of the screen, but also in the breakdown of the assignment list there in the bottom half of the screen. And then once again, we have that functionality. You're able to click on any of those assignments as they are highlighted in blue to take you to those assignment specific details. What was the assignment about? How many points was that assignment worth? Did the teacher make any particular comments on that assignment? Maybe the student scored, significantly less than 100%. Did they feel the need to add a comment indicating why that score was received? You'll also get due dates as well. Moving on to our another tab, we have secondary attendance. And even though it's referenced as secondary attendance, this is going to be attendance for all of your students. It's going to show absences. It's going to show tardies, what period of the day, for what class, and overall on the day. and this is essentially going to be a running total. So this is a really good place to come out and look to say maybe you sent in a note to have an excused absence, but it was marked as an unexcused absence. You can come out here and check to make sure that that gets corrected. If your student told you that they were in fact at school, but you got a call that they weren't from one of our automated calls for attendance that occur either in the morning or in the afternoon, you'd be able to look into that here as well. Also, sort of any attendance that's entered by the school itself in terms of a field trip, or especially, in the second semester of school, when we start to really get into testing season, schools can put in attendance indicating that for, multiple periods throughout the day, a student was taking a language arts exam or a student was taking a math exam. Another tab you have access to is your student information. As I'd mentioned earlier in training, when we were discussing how do you create your Launchpad or your OCPS parent portal account and understanding how critical it is to have a unique phone number and a unique email address, this is going to be one of those places that if you're having trouble seeing one or more of your students, getting in here and taking a look to see what contact information the schools have entered for you is going to go a long way. This data has to be entered manually. So with manual data entry, there is, some human error in there, and somebody could have accidentally keyed in a 1 instead of a 2, something to that effect, or especially as it comes to email addresses, if you choose to use like a unique alpha character or a combination of alpha characters and numeric characters, it could have just gotten transposed during entry. This would be one of those first places that you as a parent or guardian could come to say, okay, yep, everything is 100% accurate in here. That's my phone number. That's my partner's phone number. That's my email address. That's my partner's email address. Everything looks good on my end, but we're still having trouble seeing one or more of our students in the district. Let me go ahead and reach out to the school. As once again, the school is the first point of contact because they have access to all of your registration information, and they're going to need to vet that you are who you say you are as a part of doing their research. It's going to have all of your students' demographic information on here, what schools they're attending, addresses, phone numbers. If a picture was provided, and if you allowed a picture to be used, that will also be displayed in this area as well. Moving on the left-hand side, we've sort of gone down all of these tabs from the calendar to the gradebook, attendance, student information, and now we're taking a look at the schedule. And the functionality is going to be the same whether you're looking at an elementary schedule or a secondary schedule, but sort of mimicking the gradebook and how it just looks different but operates the same. Schedules are going to do that as well. Scheduling at the elementary level across the district is done in 15-minute increments. And we have that stated there on our second bullet point, but it's going to show you the class, the days of the week that that class is meeting, the room on campus that it's taking place, and the teacher for that class. So if you ever needed to know, maybe you have to pick up your student early one day from school because they have an appointment that they need to attend, and you are maybe trying to avoid their math class, because you want to make sure that they stay in their math class, you'd be able to come out here, take a look at the schedule, and see what, time of the day might be best to go in and get your student. So that is going to be the biggest difference between an elementary schedule and a secondary schedule, is you're going to see multiple periods or multiple classes listed within one period at the elementary level. Once again, that goes back to the 15-minute increments in which elementary schools must schedule their students. And then if we move over to an example of a secondary student schedule, that's going to show that it's simply going to be period by period. One class, one room for however many days of the week for period one. And it's also going to give you the breakdown of that time. So in our example here, the student is taking their culinary arts class every day of the week in room 8011, period one, and it's running from 7:20 to 8:10. We have that yellow highlighting again, indicating the current term. We can see that this particular screenshot is a little later in the year, as it's referencing term 4. But you have all the same information at both the elementary level and the secondary level. It's just laid out a little bit different. Still pretending as if we're moving down the left-hand side of our Skyward Family Access screen. We're moving from the Schedule tab now to our Discipline tab. This is where you can go and take a look at any discipline offenses that may be related to your student. In the upper right-hand portion of the screen, you're going to have offense totals, which is going to be year to date. And the offenses are essentially the infractions that your student or students committed. Then, once that offense has been entered, then there's essentially an action or a consequence that's attached to that. So the action could be anything, from a detention, a Saturday school, a Wednesday after school detention, whatever the discipline officer has at their disposal based on the offense that was committed. And then if you click on the offense further, it's going to give you essentially the details of that action or that consequence. So, okay, my student, was disrespectful to the teacher. That was the offense that was entered. Based on that offense, the discipline officer, the dean at my school, decided to give my student, an hour detention on Wednesday. If you click on that action, it then gives you the details related to that action. What day of the week is it occurring? How long is that particular action going for? It could be in hours or it could be in days, depending on sort of the consequence related to the offense and where it's going to be served. You'll also be able to track if it's a multi-hour or multi-day sort of consequence. You'll be able to see your students' progress to meeting those requirements. If they have, 2 days that they're going to go to pass or in-school suspension, starting on Wednesday, and they can go back to regular classes on Friday at the close of the school day on Wednesday, that would be marked completed, so it would go for 2 days to 1 day served. And then at the close of the day on Thursday, they wouldn't have any days left required because they've served both. Still moving down that tab list on the left-hand side, We have our test scores. So when you click on that test scores tab, the first thing that it's going to show you is any test that your student has taken, related to whether it be state testing or any sort of exceptional education testing or ELL testing. It's all going to be listed in this area. Then, if you want additional details on that particular test, that's where we have the second bullet point that you would simply click on Show Scores. And it's going to give you the details of the scoring for that particular assessment. I would also like to say that especially if your student is brand new to the district, maybe they're simply, you've been living in the state for a number of years, but you're just coming in from a neighboring district or another district within the state of Florida. It takes 1 or 2 days to get that Launchpad account going. It may take, 1 or 2 days, if not a couple of more, to get those test score pieces of information brought in here as well. So that's just something to be aware of. The Student Services tab, this is related to exceptional student education, IEP information, IAP information for our 504 students. This is a tab that may or may not show for all of your students, depending on whether or not they have ESE data. The Graduation Requirements tab, primarily used for our middle school students and our high school students, especially as they work towards earning that diploma at high school. It's going to show how they are progressing based on their given graduation plan. Now, there are multiple types of graduation plans that can be associated to students. You see, we gave an example of the standard 24 credit graduation plan. But if there are ELL students, if there are ESE students that you have in your household, their graduation plan may look a little bit different. So it's going to be unique to the student, and the progress is going to be unique to the student as well. You're going to be able to click on course information here. And a really nice feature of this particular area is that, let's say you currently have an 11th grade student. Later in the year, in semester 2, when your school starts the future year scheduling process, that scheduled column, which is our 4th bullet point, will essentially indicate the future year classes that your school is scheduling your student into to meet those final pieces of their graduation plan. Okay, so anything in that scheduled column always refers to future school year, what they will be taking. In progress, that in progress column references current year, what they're taking at this particular moment. Academic history, similar to the test scores area, if you have a brand new student to the district, it could take this area a little time to populate because we have to bring in those scores from other districts and or from other states, so that takes some time to enter this information. But the columns essentially all have very, similar naming conventions to what we had out in the gradebook. Any column that's labeled P followed by a number references a progress report grade. Q is a quarter, which is essentially related to your report cards, report card 1 for quarter 1, a citizenship grade, and an end of course exam, as there are some classes that your students take during the school year that have a built-in end of course exam that factors into their overall grade for that class. The portfolio, this is where we house all of the critical documents for your student, whether it be progress reports, report cards, or any attendance letters that may have been generated by the schools. Attendance letters usually are generated when students meet certain thresholds for absences, whether it be 5 days absent, 10 days absent, or 15 days absent. Those all can be found here. Health information is also going to be directly tied to ESE student information. So if your student has any particular health condition, this is where you want to make sure that it has been accurately entered by your school. If they are allergic to something, if they are carrying an EpiPen, are they prone to seizures? Do they have, a significant health condition that might impair them throughout the day? We want to make sure that this information is accurate. Now, your account information, this is taking us essentially back to the home screen of the Skyward Family Access. The second bullet point here is the one that's super, super important. Please remember, I mentioned this early in the training. I'm going to go ahead and reiterate it now. This Skyward login information that you see here, this change password button that's being displayed will not help you gain access, because the portal, the OCPS portal, also referred to as the Launchpad, that's what controls your access to Skyward and any other application the districts give you access to. So if you are having trouble with your password, you are not having trouble with your Skyward password, you are having trouble with your Launchpad password. You are having trouble with your OCPS parent portal password, as those two systems are synonymous with one another. So if you are having trouble logging in because of a password issue, we need to reset our Launchpad and/or OCPS parent portal password. Changing the password here will have no effect on correcting your access. The critical piece of information on this screen is going to be the email and/or phone number that you chose to create your Launchpad account with. We do want to make sure that information is accurate, along with any physical addresses, whether you have a physical address or you have a specific mailing address that you would like to use. If anything seems out of date or inaccurate when you go into this area, you're going to want to reach out to your school and provide them with the updated address information. And this is also really important because this is the information that the district uses to determine which schools your students are going to. Just a handful of slides left now. Staying on the home page, if you want more in-depth information about the Florida state-specific assessments, right below your My Account information, which we have displayed there sort of in the upper portion of the slide, you're going to be able to click on district links. This is going to be one of the few places that you click within the Skyward Family Access area that's essentially going to redirect you out and take you to a, Florida Department of Education specific view where you can look at these FSA assessments. So we're going to go ahead and start summarizing our presentation today. Any information related to Skyward, You're always going to go to www.ocps.net. Once you're logged on to the main OCPS website, you're going to look for the Current Families tab. Once you click on that, from the drop-down menu, you're going to click on Skyward Information. That Current Families and Skyward Information area is going to have a wealth of information for you, any communication sent out by the district as it relates to Skyward, as well as instructional guides, how-to guides, and videos for getting access to that Launchpad and or OCPS parent portal account. You're also going to have access to the help form that you would need to fill out and submit to the school if you're having trouble accessing any of your students' information in Skyward through the parent portal. And we also have a video there for you that's going to show you how to register. If you are in fact having issues with your family access, filling out that form and then contacting your student's school, or if there are multiple schools involved because you have multiple students, that's going to be the first thing that needs to get done. Your school is going to be able to verify you are who you say you are, and that the information that you provided during registration in terms of address, cell phone numbers, and email addresses are in fact accurate. If each guardian or parent wants a unique account for the parent portal, then they must be using a unique cell phone number and a unique email address. You shouldn't be accessing your student Skyward information through your student account. We want you to have your own to be able to look at. Once you've contacted the school, if you're still experiencing some issues, the school reaches back out to you, says, hey, we believe we fixed the problem. You can try logging in, in about 24 hours. You wait that day, excuse me, and you're still unable to log in. You let the school know. At that point in time, that's when the school is essentially going to reach out to my department, the student information department at the district, and we'll begin to take a look at it from our end to see if there's anything the school may have missed. Here are some of those frequently asked questions. Where can we find information as it relates to Skyward? OCPS.net, on the Current Families tab, under the Skyward Information area. In that area, you can find guides and how-to videos on how to register for your OCPS parent portal and or Launchpad account. Making sure that you are using a unique cell phone number and a unique email address. Once again, landline phone numbers or VoIP, voice over internet phone numbers will not be able to create an account with. And then the last two bullet points there sort of give you more information as it relates to registering. That last one, number 5, critical once again. The information that you're using to create your OCPS parent portal account must match the information that's in Skyward across all of your students for you to be able to see all of your student information. And with that, brings me to a close for the presentation for this evening.
Thank you, Andres. I think this was very helpful information for all the parents. I know we have, multiple questions for a lot of things are very common. So I think the lab, information, they can, resources to start to look for those, maybe issues they can solve. And I think the more common error is like they need to update or, check that they have that unique cell phone or email. we want to, I would like to answer all these questions in the chat, but I think for those, you have resources right now that you can start, check and see if that, maybe help or solve that issue that you have. If no, contact your school for more information. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Andres. I left my email, for those that maybe have more questions. I will try to reach, out and help you. But thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.